Yep. Dr. Jones, we are live.
All right.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Just like you, I'm a little better than good.
Okay. Well, it's
Yeah.
Friday Eve. So,
Friday Eve.
yeah.
What does that mean?
We're one step closer to the weekend, but I don't know if that matters given,
Anymore?
anymore, given
Yeah.
our situation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because all the days tend to run together.
Yeah.
For me, that's why I said, what does that mean? Obviously. So, thank you for joining me and us today. Um, we'll give I say it every time. We have millions of viewers. So we'll give them all a chance. It takes a while for everybody, all million, for a million people to get into a live stream. So we'll wait a little bit
Right.
to give everybody an opportunity. So those that are joining, I would ask you to post some comments. Dr. Jones, we are on LinkedIn specifically is the channel that I like to use to do this particular live stream. We're also on Facebook too as well. And today is a little bit different than what we've done in previously. So what I've been doing is every Thursday at 2:00 we've been doing these live streams, and primarily most of it has been around like housing and finance, because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a good bit of it at the beginning when we went into quarantine, I started to think about it, and I looked at my LinkedIn and I look at all these fantastic contacts that I have and have built over the years. And I'm like, I want to give people an opportunity to hear from those folks, to also to basically to be able to share the network with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I've been doing every week. It's like the 20th one. I don't know. We started back in the middle of March, and haven't missed a week since. And so, like I said, it's just a great opportunity for me to share my network, to add value to everyone out there, because ultimately, most of my clients are real people that have real needs, and we need to be able to provide them information that's pertinent to them outside of a 30-year fixed rate and
Right.
purchasing a home in a specific neighborhood. So today really is about the homeowner specifically. And so, as you and I were texting this week, we were talking about like potential refinances and such, and questions about that. And then you remember, I'm just like, I have a live stream today at, this week at, on Thursday. Would you think you could speak and, talk a little bit about it? And so, the comment that I made, and I'll say it again in a little bit, was that you have purchased twice during the historically low rates. So back around 2012, we
Yep.
hit an all-time low. And then just recently, 2020, we hit an
Yep.
all-time low. And for some strange reason, you have happened to time it perfectly. And so you remember my comment in the text, do you know something that I don't know?
Listen, what is this saying? Favor ain't fair.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's treating you well, definitely. Treating you very well. So
Yeah.
so can you everyone, I have Rochelle Jones with us. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. So professionally, I am a associate professor at George Mason University, Mason Nation. Um, and so I teach systems engineering and project management to undergrads and graduate students there. I've been with Mason now. I mean, it's been a full circle moment having received my bachelor's and master's at Mason and then my PhD at the University of Central Florida. But prior to joining Mason, I was with Lockheed Martin for 14 years. And, you know, great experience there, but I come from a family of educators. And after I got my PhD, I knew at some point I needed to migrate to the world of academia. And so an opportunity presented itself. And yeah, I'm happy that I made that transition. So that's me. I'm a runner.
Yeah, I
Not
was going to ask
running
you to
in
tell
this
us.
100-degree weather right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, get into the personal piece. You said you're a runner.
Yeah, I'm a runner. but yeah, not really running right now because of the heat, but hoping to get back into that in the fall when it cools down, and hopefully, fingers crossed, next year we can get some races back on the calendar. All of my races were canceled this year, so um, a good thing, because it's a good break to take a break from running, but at the same time I'm like, okay, being at home during this quarantine, sitting on the couch and just a few steps away from the refrigerator, you get real comfy real quick. So just hoping to get back to that in the fall.
You look the same since the last time I saw you before
Yay!
prior to quarantine. So you're fine. Yeah. You look just fine. So speaking of which, so we'll stick on the running piece real quick. It's relevant to what we're going to talk about, but like, did that play at all in a part of your decision? Because you bought in DC back in 2012, right?
Yep.
And then you repurchased again in another neighborhood in DC. Did you
Hmm.
think about that, like running, like while you were purchasing neighborhood and stuff?
Yes, I did, because I'm not a big treadmill runner. I mean, yes, if it's 12 degrees outside, then yes, I'm going to go to the gym and run on the treadmill. But I really like running outside, and running along, say, the mall in DC or Haynes Point. That kind of gets old, and so I wanted to ensure that when I walk outside my front door, I can immediately start running, and not have to get in my car and drive someplace and then start running. When I lived in Orlando, that's what I had to do. I could not leave my house and start running. I had to get in my car and drive to a park or, another neighborhood that had streets and sidewalks where I could run. So it definitely played a part in the neighborhood that I ended up living in now, both with the first purchase and the second purchase, just being able to walk outside and either walk my neighborhood or run the neighborhood.
Got it. And then so this time around, what was your thoughts? Why from my understanding, you had a perfectly good house because I helped you with that way
You
back
did.
when. What was your thought process to purchase this time around in DC, just in a
Mhm.
different neighborhood and in a new different home?
Well, honestly, I was actually looking to purchase, but that purchase be an investment property, and I stay in that home, that first home that you helped me with. But after conversations with other Mason Nation, contacts that we have in the real estate um, industry, it made sense that I hold on to that property, use that as my investment property, and move into the home that I'm in now. So it took a minute for me to wrap my hands around leaving that property, because I love that property. And increasing, my home ownership, and um, purchasing something that I was going to live in. So things that I looked into for this home, definitely, like I said, someplace where I could, walk my neighborhood or run in my neighborhood. Um, I wanted something that felt like a neighborhood where, when I walk outside and I'm taking my trash, to the curb for the pickup the next day, I'm waving to neighbors, I'm talking to neighbors, because that's important. Because, if something happens and I need to run to somebody's door and knock on their door and say, hey, it's Rochelle, I need help. I don't want someone, to be looking at me like, well, who is this?
Right.
That's really important to me, to have that neighborhood feel. Um, and then let's be real. I mean, when we purchase homes or, investment properties, we definitely want that return on investment. And so I wanted a home that, 3 to 5 years later, it was going to have an increase in value, meaning development is happening around it. And not necessarily I would be ready to sell it, but I would have that increase just for my own net worth, because we all want to, retire with a nice nest egg, to retire with. So all of that played a factor. I did not want something that required a lot of um, handiwork around the house, because I did that with the first purchase. So I wanted something that was almost turnkey ready, but still needed some minor tweaks here and there. So that was important as well.
Got it. And why was that important? I know you said you did it the first time around, like in regards to some handiwork. Was it overbearing? Was it costly? Like what? You know, tell me a little bit more about that, because I have home buyers that we speak to about that, and there are products available to do renovation loans and such. And then even other products after you purchase the home where you can take a second mortgage and do like a home equity line of credit and
Mhm.
things of that nature. But also sometimes home buyers and people don't have the temperament to deal with contractors, to
Right.
maybe not be able to see the future and what it's going to look like. So like, what was your mindset? Tell us a little bit more about that piece.
It was actually the latter, Shawn. I so for with the first home that I purchased with you, I had a bad experience with a contractor and an architect. I had like these, plans that I wanted for that home, and just some bad experiences just rubbed me the wrong way. Now, thankfully, I did end up with a good contractor who did the minor updates that I was looking for to do with that property. But just because that experience left a bad taste in my mouth, I just thought, you know what, let's not get into that right away.
Right.
Like I said, like some minor things here and there, but I didn't want to purchase a property this time around where immediately, either before I could live in the home or as soon as I, close on the home, I would have to go into renovations. I just didn't want that. I didn't want that HGTV experience.
You just like been there, done that, right?
Right.
Right, right. So that's a good point though. Like as we progress, starter home, you know, and then you move into the house where it's like, I don't know if this will be your forever home. Maybe it is, but kind of a step up where something that you don't have to put a whole bunch of work in. You get in there and you're comfortable because you're deep into your career now. You don't have a lot of time to do
Hmm.
that. Also, it takes away from your running and other activities that you want to do. So it gets to a point in life where you kind of want to settle and not be so involved in those projects.
Right.
So yeah, so what I heard you say is you're looking for like neighborly, friendly neighborhood. That was
Mhm.
one thing that was important to you.
Yep.
A community, um, the financial aspect of it, where basically there's some an investment component to it that's
Mhm.
gonna offer you some money in the future, and then move in ready was important. All right. So now
Yeah.
let's speak to the finances, because um I do mortgages. There are lots of people that do mortgages out there, but like from the financial perspective of it, like what you use in regards to your checklist? Like, to kind of make that decision on which options were good or bad, or just, the direction you wanted to go with down payment and such, and monthly payment and everything.
Mhm.
And even your price range.
Right. So now, Shawn, this is the third home that I have purchased, but the second one with you.
Yes.
So you know the ins and outs of my finances. And I think you've seen my spreadsheet, my budget spreadsheet that I have.
I
And
have.
I am a I am a big stickler for everybody having, if it's a spreadsheet, if it's an app or something that you have that you manage your budget, like you got to have something that you look at periodically to just know what your bottom line is. And so for me, you know, I have a lifestyle, and not to say that it's extravagant, but prior to COVID, um, I take at least one international trip a year. And so I knew that I wanted to continue that.
Right.
Um, I am thankfully blessed to be in a situation where, if my parents need assistance, or, if my sister needs assistance with something, I can step in and, be that resource for them. And so all of that was important for me in order to maintain, my lifestyle that I have created. So when I, considered purchasing this second home, for me, what was important was, okay, what is that mortgage payment going to be? And that not just the mortgage, but home insurance, taxes, any oops, something broke or whatever, like, what does that look like and how is that going to fit into my budget? And so that was a huge thing for me. And once I shared that with my realtor, and we plugged in the numbers, and if, let's say, for example, if that magic number was like 2,300 for a mortgage payment, okay, how much house is that? Okay, this is my limit, nothing, nothing above, this is it. So for me, it was the monthly payment, because I wanted to maintain, my lifestyle. And even though I'm using the first home that I purchased with your help, as rental property, and I have that income, coming in, life happens. And I didn't want to be in a situation where I'm solely relying on, that rent payment to cover
Yeah.
the mortgage, here. And, for that property, I wanted to be in a position where if something happens and I don't have those renters, I'm able to, you know, balance, both mortgages for a set period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart. That's very, very important. And you're absolutely right. So as you know, there's a difference between affordability and qualification.
Hmm.
I get so many clients that come to me like, tell me what I qualify for. Well, Dr. Jones, I don't have a problem telling you what you qualify for,
Right.
right? However, what I do have a problem with is if you don't understand what you can afford, that's a problem. You like just like you mentioned, if it's $2,300 a month, what does that ideal payment look
Right.
like for you?
Right.
However, as you and I both know, sometimes you have to stretch it.
Right.
You find something that checks all the boxes for you, but it's expensive to check all the boxes,
Right.
and your budget goes up a little bit. So what's that number that you won't go a penny more over,
Hmm.
right? And you might qualify for $5,000 a month, but if you really, if you want to take the trips and do all the stuff and, enter the events, because for running for you, it costs money to enter the events and to travel there and buy the gear and stuff,
Right.
then you want to think about that budget that you have.
Right.
that
Exactly.
it's very important. And so yeah, I think it's smart what you said, and it's specifically about being a landlord as well, because so many people also think about um when it's good,
Mhm.
and it's all good until it's not.
Right. Yep.
Always all good until it's not. So we go through a situation like this, and maybe your tenant loses their employment and they can't pay you, not because they don't want to go to work or whatever it might be.
Right.
They just may not be able to do so. And so you can put yourself in a bad situation if you're banking on that piece of that rental aspect to subsidize that mortgage for you. You want to think about and consider that too as well. And I know you considered that. Like when we talked about it, you're like, I don't think I want to, really take into consideration any,
Hmm.
rental cash flow that I'm getting into this new mortgage. I want to be able to be able to afford both.
Right.
Right. So budget's very important. We talked about qualifying versus affordability. So um, what have you been doing besides, fighting yourself away, as you mentioned, from the refrigerator? Um, which doesn't look like that you've done. I have a little bit. My cheeks are getting a little puffy. Um, but like, have you been thinking about any home improvement projects while we've been, kind of in quarantine?
Yes. And I know my neighbors, the great neighbors that I have, I know they're like, okay, is that yet another package that she's receiving in the mail? So, with all new homeowners, regardless if it's, your first home or your second or third, you get into the home and you immediately want to do everything. And so,
Yeah.
I think COVID-19 has helped because I'm not going to, all the different stores like we did before, all of this happened. So that has slowed me down as far as wanting to tackle everything. But I sat down and I said, okay, so my house is 3 levels. And I said, okay, I'm going to concentrate on my den because that's where my television is. So my den, the kitchen, and my bedroom. So those are the 3 rooms that I'm going to concentrate on this year. And if I can get through, that, then I'm happy. I have a basement that it has an area, like a lounge area, and then it has a bedroom down there. And my dad is already asking, when am I going to have that area ready for him? And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you're not going to be coming to visit me anytime soon, because of,
Yeah.
the pandemic and everything. So I'm like, listen, if I don't have it ready for you until next year, that's fine, because that sounds about right when you should be coming, to visit and everything, when things are hopefully a little better. So, just pacing myself and not wanting to tackle everything immediately. But, like I said earlier, I was fortunate to get a home that was pretty much turnkey ready. So it's not a lot that's, required as far as like renovations or, like repair or anything like that. It's just, sprucing it up, making it pretty and entertaining and all of that, but just not wanting to tackle that all at once so I don't overwhelm myself or break my budget, that I try to live by. So yeah, I'm taking my time.
Got it. And then did you social distance? I'm sure you guys been doing a little bit of virtual learning as well. So again, everyone that's on, I'm with Dr. Rochelle Jones, and she's a professor at George Mason University, the great university in Fairfax, Virginia,
Nice.
Mason Nation. Um, and so I know you have a space all set up for for your work, right?
Yes, yes.
Because you didn't mention that in your 3 spaces that you're working on.
No.
Yeah,
So I have the room that will be the designated, like office,
yes,
area. But no, that's the next year. That's a next year project. But maybe I, switch it out since I will be teaching virtually this fall. So maybe I need to up that on my list of sprucing up rooms, getting that room ready. But I mean, other things that I've done, when the weather permits, still getting out, for my runs. And, I'm not going to the gym. So I've kind of made my own makeshift gym in my basement to keep myself safe. But one thing, other friends, laugh at me, they're like, oh, I read this book and I read that book over here. And Oprah has this book on her list. Rochelle, what did you read? And I'm like, yeah, a textbook,
of
my
course.
profession. But, this has been, the first time in a long time that I've had the opportunity to just enjoy leisure reading.
Yeah,
So I've gotten a couple of books that, yeah, I just pull out and I read, and I'm just happy, to have that. Because yeah, once school is in session, I'm not doing any leisure reading. It's usually all, technical, journal articles or textbooks. So
student of the game.
taking advantage of that. And then FaceTime and Zoom, I got my parents on Zoom now. So, between, my sister and I, we'll meet up with my parents every so often, and we'll have Zoom calls or house party, calls. And so they're tickled, to be using this new technology to interact with us. So, yeah, pretty low key over here, but,
That's amazing. It's funny you say that. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm gonna throw you for a loop real quick.
Okay, let me
Here we
break.
go. You ready? So I've been starting to ask this question generally when I do presentations and stuff. I open up with this, but you mentioned about reading books and leisure and stuff. But dead or alive, if you could pick one person that you'd like to have a meal with and sit down and have a conversation, who would that be?
Dead or alive? Oh my.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. That's such a good question.
Don't beat me up after this because I put you on the spot.
Yeah. So, okay, so this is probably like a cliche answer, but
No, it's
I
not.
say this because I read her book. So, Michelle Obama, and here's why. So, when I read her book, I LOL'd throughout that book.
It was
And
like you were on her shoulder, right?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
amazing.
And I mean, just looking at them from afar on television, you could tell how down to earth they were anyway. But
Yeah.
reading her book and her sharing some intimate details of her personal life and then her life with Barack, and then when they expanded their family with their children, I was so appreciative of that. Um, where, it almost felt like she was my homegirl because there were different aspects of her life that I could relate to and say, yeah, I have felt the same way. Same as you, even though we put you on this very high pedestal and everything. Um, but I would like to have a conversation with her just to, pick her brain about how she was able to, balance, this, extraordinary, professional life that, she had prior to meeting Barack, and then maintaining that when they were together. And then still being, this strong, successful woman, even with her husband being the president,
Right.
of the United States. Like so many people look up to her, maybe even more so than they do him. And just to pick her brain about, being in the White House and then having to pass it on to, just some more extra detail that she didn't share, in the book. I
Right. Right.
her brain, a little bit more to learn more about that. So yeah, I would say her.
I love it. That's not cliche. Like that was a lot of people want to meet her. I would love if we could get all of our Mason Nation friends in a room and have her over and talk. That would be like so amazing. But like, that's not cliche. That was very well spoken, and um, I laughed a lot reading that book as well. I read the book
Hmm.
because not just women read the book.
No, women don't. Men should read that book as well. Yeah,
It's a great book. Her story is phenomenal.
it really is. It really is.
Um, cool. So I try to keep this to like 30 minutes. I know you're busy. I'm not going to take much more of your time, but any parting words and then I'll tell mine and then we'll be done.
So, parting words. I mean, I think now is the time for people who are in the market for, purchasing a home. I think now is definitely the time.
Yeah.
Really thankful to you, reaching out, saying, hey, you may want to think about refinancing. And I'm so happy that I'm doing that. But if anybody, is tiptoeing, whether or not they want to, purchase something, don't second guess it. Home ownership, I mean, yeah, it comes with, a huge responsibility, but you've got to think long term, and it will be so worth it. And you got to think about generational wealth as well, something that you can pass on, either to your own children or maybe, people in the family. So now is definitely the time to consider it.
Awesome. Thank you. So I say the same thing every time we talk about relationships, DNA, and plan, right? So relationships, like with us, building relationships before you need them. We met in college a while ago, long time ago. So that speaks for itself, and we're still in a relationship, uh outside of even business. It's just, we care about each other, and we're always willing to help each other. So build relationships before you need them. DNA, why you do what you do, who you'd let down. A lot of the things that I heard you talk about today have been about your family. You mentioned your parents a lot in this, and your sister in this. And then lastly, you just mentioned generational wealth. So know who you are and why you're doing what you do. And then lastly, we talk about having a plan. In order to hit your target and to get to your final goal and destination, you need a roadmap. So one thing you mentioned earlier today that I talked to a lot of people about is a budget. Like, what better piece of your plan than to understand, how much it's going to cost and if you can afford it and such, than to start off with a budget. So, like I said, relationships, DNA, plan. I want everybody to continue to stay safe. Again, not to get too political. I don't know how this got political, anyway, but just wear your mask. They tell me that the mask helps, to save everybody's lives, save your life, save mine, or to mitigate the spread of the COVID. So just that's my thing. I just wear your mask, just stay safe, make good decisions. And so hope everybody has a great one. Dr. Jones, you can hang on after I close this out, but really thank you so much for your time today. It means a lot that you were willing to speak about home ownership to my network. And everyone, as you know, always, if you need anything, I'm here to help. Have a great day.